Yo, manga and anime come and go, but it is extremely rare to come across an anime that takes over the world in the way that Jujutsu Kaisen did. For the better part of the last 5 years, it has been damn near impossible to go throughout your day without seeing some kind of Jujutsu Kaisen reference. And it's so interesting because this happens very rarely, but Jujutsu Kaisen memes made their way into every single fandom. It didn't matter what you were a fan of. If something in your series happened that was even tangentially related to JJK, you were definitely getting a Jujutsu Kaisen inspired meme sometime within the next 24 hours. We had the Megumi and Maharaga memes. Nide Win was everywhere. The strongest curse user in history versus the strongest curse user of today. I remember there were so many fan arts and fan edits of that. Gojo getting packed. This might be glazed, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's a stretch to say Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the most iconic manga of all time. And yes, I mean it is on par with the Dragon Ball Z's and the Attack on Titans and the Naruto. These series that feel almost omnipresent in the mainstream culture. And after almost 300 chapters and 6.5 years, we have finally gotten to the ending. So is the ending good? You know, it has its moments. Okay, let's start out with the positive. I love basically everything about Gojo's character arc, and I think Gojo's treatment in the series gets a lot of unfair criticism, largely because Gojo is just so popular and people want to see good things happen to him, that they perceive the imperfections and tragedies of Gojo's character as narrative mistakes. Like people complaining about not seeing Gojo's funeral or Gojo's death being very unceremonious, but you know, I feel like that's kind of the point. That's just how Jujutsu society is. This was told to us very early on in the story. Jujutsu sorcerers don't sit around mourning each other. They have to keep moving forward. And as much as I love Gojo and as big of a piece of Jujutsu Kaisen as he was, in the grand scheme of things, he was still just a cog in the machine. A very large cog, but a cog nonetheless. In Jujutsu society, you don't get the luxury of having a good death, which is another thing that we've been told about the series over and over again. Really, the best thing that you can hope for is a useful death. And I think that's even more so the case when it comes to Gojo. Because like in the grand scheme of Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo is not really viewed as a person. He is a living weapon. He's been a living weapon from birth. He was raised to be a living weapon, and he was a living weapon up until the day that he died, and even after his death. But that's what comes with being the strongest. I have similar feelings about the way people talk about Gojo's death being off-screened, and it's such a dumb complaint, and it always has been, because like we literally saw what happened. Literally the only different thing that could have happened is there would have just been one black panel that said slash, and then we would have saw Gojo cut in half. That shit would have made no fucking difference. When people complain about superficial shit like that in stories, it pisses me off so much. Like, who cares? And in fact, I would say that the way this was done was way more effective than just showing it, because we build Gojo up throughout the entirety of 235. We let Gojo exude all this hubris and enjoy the joy of battle, and then we cut him down, literally and figuratively. I think it works for Gojo's character and what that fight meant for Gojo's character. I think it works for the relationship between Sukuna and Gojo really well. Everything about Gojo's conclusion is just so perfect. No complaints. Zero complaints. Everything about Gojo is just so well done, bro. I love Gojo.
He glazing. Look, he glazing.
Another really strong point of the ending obviously was Sukuna. I know I've made the jokes before about how Gege glazes Sukuna and stuff, but shit, was he wrong? Sukuna is very important to probably my favorite message in Jujutsu Kaisen, which is about how curses relate to humans. Because in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen and even in the fandom, people like to talk about curses as if they are the antithesis of humanity, which is not true. Curses are born from humanity. They come from different aspects of humanity that we don't like to acknowledge. We like to pretend that humans are these benevolent, well-meaning creatures, but throughout the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, we are shown over and over again that as horrible as curses are, everything that they do simply reflects humanity. And I think this is shown the best through characters like Sukuna and Mahito and Yuji, to be honest. I think it's exemplified really well in Sukuna and Yuji's last exchange. You know, when Sukuna's that little blob thing, he looked like, if you ever played that poo app, he looked like the little poo that you take care of. Because Yuji is the only character, as far as we know, that actually acknowledges the similarities between curses and humans. Because Yuji looks at characters like Mahito and Sukuna, and he sees aspects of himself, immutable characteristics that both humanity and curses will never be able to get rid of. And as opposed to the fight with Mahito, where he just wanted to beat the dog shit out of him, with Sukuna, he finally comes to peace with this revelation and is able to extend his hand. But Sukuna, on the other hand, was not able to accept this. And when I saw people talking about this, I saw a lot of people saying, yeah, that's my villain. He stood on business. He really stood 10 toes down, and no, nigga, that shit is pathetic. Because all the way up to his death, Sukuna was afraid to ever admit that he may have took the wrong path in life. That as strong and intelligent and capable as Sukuna is, he fucked fucked up, and that just making connections and understanding people and being understood by people may have made him happier in the long run. And he let himself die because he wasn't able to accept this. And even Sukuna kinda acknowledges this when he's in the crossroads with Mahito and shit. In my life, I could have took a different path, and maybe me and the people around me would have been better off for it. And in that final encounter between Mahito and Sukuna, it exemplifies the real difference between humans and curses. Because while Sukuna decides to take a different path and embrace his humanity, Mahito only has the negative part. He is a curse through and through, and he will never change. And yeah, that's about all I got for the positives. As for the negatives, let's talk about Yuji and Sukuna. I know I just talked about how much I love their relationship and what it means to the themes of Jujutsu Kaisen, but all of that doesn't change the fact that the way that this plotline ended felt so disjointed. And I don't actually think this has anything to do with Yuji or Sukuna themselves, because when Yuji and Sukuna do interact with each other inside of Yuji's domain, or whatever the fuck that was, because Gege never told us what the fuck it was, it could have been anything. That whole sequence is really resonant. It exemplifies all the shit I just talked about the beautiful parts of humanity that Sukuna neglected. But I think the bad feeling that I get about it has to do with the fact that so much of this final fight was not focused on Yuji and Sukuna. I feel like so much more of that fight should have been 1v1 between Yuji and Sukuna, because those were the best parts of the fight, and they were what we were waiting for the entirety of the story. Like, wow, I can't wait for Yuji to use Sukuna's own curse technique against them, and it barely fucking happens. I know we joke about Yuji being like a side character in his own manga, but Jesus Christ. I think I have a similar problem with Sukuna that I had with Madara and Naruto. They're not bad villains. They're really cool and really strong, but it feels like because they have to be made so cool and strong, everything and everyone else suffers. None of the characters can get really worthwhile moments because it doesn't mean anything, because the villain has to keep winning for the foreseeable future. I think the biggest victim of this has to be Yuta, because when Yuta pulls up and he's using his domain expansion, he's going back and getting Gojo's body and swapping his mind into Gojo's body. All of this is built up as if it's going to be very consequential and it's going to matter. It doesn't. And it's because Sukuna has to keep winning. And then we get the whole shit at the end where Yuta's just sitting in bed like nothing ever happened. Don't piss me off, bro. I love Yuta. He's probably my favorite character in Jujutsu Kaisen. His role in that final fight, and basically everybody that wasn't named Yuji, Gojo, and maybe you can throw Todo and Choso in there, everybody else was fucking useless. And they only got moments because Gege felt obligated to give them moments. But those moments ultimately amounted to nothing. And I think the big problem stems from, again, something that it shares with Madara. They only have one big in-game villain, and the entirety of the alliance is built up to fight this one villain. And it means that none of the characters outside of the main character can get any significant win. And it wouldn't be as frustrating if it wasn't such an avoidable problem, because literally in the previous arc we introduced so many characters that could have been used as in-game villains. But no, Gege says fuck that, kill them all. Just use them as fodder so Sukuna can flex and shit. Anybody who isn't Sukuna has to get pushed to the wayside, like that Hakari and Uraume shit. What the fuck was that? Who thought that was a good idea? You couldn't have just half-assed the ending for that fight. You couldn't have set aside one single chapter for that fight. Nothing. And then it's even more frustrating because you did have another in-game villain. You had Kenjaku, and I enjoyed Takaba versus Kenjaku. I thought it was cool, it was funny. But then you kill him off in the most lame, unsatisfying way possible without exploring any of the things about his character that made him genuinely interesting. And there's like a million things like that in Jujutsu Kaisen where it feels like things got hyped up so much just to be ignored. Like all the implications of the Heian era shit and the shit with Yuta's ancestors and all the different storylines and plot threads that got set up there. Like, oh, there's so much history here that we're gonna learn and it's gonna add so much context to the Jujutsu world. Oh my god, nothing. Not a damn thing. And this nigga better not pull a Bleach, trying to drop everything in light novels and shit. I don't even care no more. And don't even get me started on Nobara. I was one of those people that was like, okay, Nobara's definitely still alive. But as the series went on farther and farther, I was like, there's no way. My hope just died down more and more, because it's like, as we get closer to the end, what would be the point of reintroducing her? She must just be dead. But no, we still get her back in the most underwhelming way possible, to the point where throughout the entirety of those final couple chapters, I couldn't help but keep looking at Nobara every panel she was in. Like, why are you even here? But again, I felt that way for most of the characters. And fucking Megumi too. I think there are some unfair criticisms about Megumi, like people saying that Gege hyped up his potential just for us to never see it. I don't think that's true. I think we saw it through Sukuna, which might not be enough for some people, but I feel like it's enough for me. But what I really dislike about Megumi is the way that his character was treated. Nothing about how strong he is or him being a potential man, but just the simple fact that the ending tries to trick you into thinking that Megumi had an actual character arc. We were there, nigga. We read the whole manga. You not gonna shoehorn some dumbass letter from Gojo in at the end and trick us into thinking that Megumi grew as a person. I still think Jujutsu Kaisen was a really good manga, and I still think Gege is a really good author. I just think Jujutsu Kaisen wasn't really his vision, and he really just didn't have everything mapped out. Even as disappointed as I am with Jujutsu Kaisen's ending, if Gege drops something else, I'ma still check it out. But yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all boys today. Let me know what you think about Jujutsu Kaisen's ending in the comments below, and comment curse if you made it to the end. Just confuse all the niggas that didn't make it here. Like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, man, I'm gone. Damn.